The Chicago Bulls 2026 offseason preview. I want to hear your thoughts down below in the comment section. What do you guys expect? Thoughts, outlook, anything in between? Comment them, like, and subscribe. We're on the way to 20,000. I can't get there without your guys' help. So it will mean the world if you guys did that. Let's get into it. Chicago, they went 31-51. I think a lot of injuries and then the pulling the plug on the season. I think they started off hot, and Josh Giddey looked like a potential third All-NBA team candidate. He got hurt at one point, but there were flashes of this team looking like they could have been a dark horse play-in 6 seed, and then that all fell out the window, and they decided to pull the plug, fired Karnisovas. Who do you guys think the Bulls candidates for general manager are, and do you think any of them should be hired? So let's get right into it on that front. I think one of the things the Bulls need to decide is, are they going to try to see this Matas, Noah Esenge young core catch up with Josh Giddey, or do they want to have Josh Giddey? I really think they should follow the Thunder blueprint. Josh Giddey's a little bit older, sort of like Shea is, and try to be like a poor man version of the Thunder. Now we're hearing that the guys who have pulled into the potential replacing of Karnisovas, Matt Lloyd, he's with the general manager of the Timberwolves. He actually was with the Bulls. He seems to be a guy that's being in consideration. Rob Hennigan, the Thunder VP of basketball operations. He's someone that national media floated. Mike Zarin, executive vice president of the Celtics, and he's like the cap and strategy lead. We're also hearing that maybe a guy like, if not Matt Lloyd or Rob Hennigan, the internal candidates, a Pat Conley, then Adam Simon, Heat executive, Ted Wu with the Pacers, and really, I think that's like the biggest ones that we've seen in terms of names. I think it's either going to be Matt Lloyd or Rob Hennigan or Pat Conley. Pat Conley being the eternal candidate, who is the brother of Tim Conley, who's the president of the Timberwolves. So let's get into the rest of this discussion. They're free agents this year. Also, they have the 9th pick, the 38th pick, the 58th pick, and Portland's pick if it falls between 15 and 30, with a 4.5% chance of getting the number 1 pick. Zach Collins is a free agent. They have a team option on Leonard Miller that they will pick up. Nick Richards, Colin Sexton, Anthony Simons, Gershon Yabusele are all unrestricted free agents. Mahamadou Gueye has a $2.4 million team option. I think they'll pick that up. Matt McClung, Yuki Kawamura, and Lachlan Ulbrich. By the way, Lachlan Ulbrich had a triple-double in the last game of the season. That was wild. All 3 of them are restricted free agents. I expect them to at least get Exhibit 10s or 2-ways again if they're eligible to come back. In late March, Josh Giddey gave an honest assessment on the team, saying that this is a team that's trying to figure out the strategy. They know they're not built for a championship, that they're going into a younger phase. I don't think anyone expected Billy Donovan to step down. And I know it was a rough season, but this has been an interesting turn of events due to the recent report from Sham Shrani of ESPN that he has decided to opt out. And the Bulls made it clear that the organization wanted Donovan back after they made sweeping changes to the front office. But Donovan held an option in his contract for next season and elected to step down after he held extensive meetings with team ownership last week. Donovan determined he wanted to give the organization a clean break that will allow them to undergo its front office search and allow their new top basketball executive to make the next head coach hiring. And if you guys know, usually when a new regime comes in and there's a prior coach, that prior coach is not viewed as on the same level as the current regime that takes over, unless it was an in-house hire, because usually the new regime wants their own coach. The Bulls fired Vice President of Basketball Operation Arturas Karnisovas and General Manager Marc Eversley on April 6th after a 6-year run that just produced one playoff appearance. Donovan held meetings with the team this week, and as long as he wanted, even in a manager role. So it's interesting that Donovan, Hall of Fame head coach, went 243 and 157 in Oklahoma in 5 years. And then with the Bulls, he went 226 and 256, missed the playoffs for the 4th straight year. The organization expressed interest in keeping him as he was under contract, but we know other teams were interested in him. New York Knicks last offseason and North Carolina before they hired Mike Malone. Now Donovan plans to continue coaching and will be a viable target for any teams interested. It definitely will be interesting to see what happens due to the fact that they're interviewing Timberwolves general manager Matt Lloyd, Detroit Pistons senior vice president Dennis Lindsey, Atlanta Hawks senior vice president Bryson Graham, Cleveland Cavaliers general manager Mike Gansey, San Antonio Spurs assistant GM Dave Tellep, and CAA's head of basketball Austin Brown, which makes me curious that, like, with all those options, who could be for, like, the Timberwolves? Would they bring in Mike Nori if they hired Matt Lloyd? If the Detroit Pistons, would they go with somebody off of JB Bickerstaff's staff? That could be somebody. Same thing goes with the Atlanta Hawks. Would they go with somebody off of Quinn Snyder's staff, or even because he's another Detroit guy? So there's a possibility that that could end up being sort of a mutually interesting correlation in terms of like who could be hired and why. But besides that, you look at the rest of this, I think the Bulls will probably aim to hire its new decision maker just before the draft or maybe after it. The coach, the NBA coaching cycle is a little different just because of how it goes. So I want to hear your thoughts.
Reverse it. Other thing is to start at it.
So the Bulls have drafted in the lottery 4 straight years and 5 times since Karnisovas took over in 2020. They have not selected higher than 11th in any of those drafts. Despite making a league-high 7 trades this season that netted 8 second-round picks, Chicago acquired no players who are going to be like long-term difference makers, or at least on paper. For the past 5 seasons, they've been in play-in purgatory. And finally, they decided we're going to try to get out of mediocrity and get out of the middle. So fortunately for the new front office, this situation is, I think, one that is not a terrible one. So pretty moldable. You have a Hall of Fame coach, a likely top 10 pick, and a pretty decently clean cap sheet to work with. With 11 players under contract, including their lottery pick in this year's draft, and you're picking up Leonard Miller's $2.4 million team option, Chicago projects to have a league-high $60 million in cap space this summer. That projection assumes the Bull renounces every free agent on their roster's cap hold and they meet the salary requirement by opening night, which would mean they have to spend at least $46 million in some capacity and build an identity. Find a foundation. I think this transition length with Matas and Josh Giddey and Noah Gay is one that could work, and how the Bulls put that plan in motion is going to be in direct considerations to whoever they hire. In a 5-month span in 2021, Chicago brought in Nikola Vucevic, Lonzo Ball, and DeMar DeRozan for 3 first-round picks, and one they eventually reacquired in a Zach LaVine trade, 3 second-round picks, and a package of players. In 2022, the Bulls traded a then 24-year-old Lauri Markkanen to, well, it was to the Cavaliers, right? It was a sign trade to the Cavaliers, and then he ended up going to Utah. So those trades kind of like put Chicago in what they thought was the path to contention, but really just had them go into mediocrity, reaching the play-in 4 straight seasons, winning just 1 playoff game. Lonzo Ball's knees went to crap. And before that, they were 27-14. They looked amazing. So this offseason, the new front office must accept that this team needs to figure out what's the core. I think Trey Jones, Josh Giddey, Matas Buzelis, Noah Essengay. Essengay drafted 12th overall in 2025, played just 2 games before suffering a season-ending shoulder injury. And with the Bulls having the spending power to sign free agents, they're not yet in the stage to commit long-term, so they should do like the Isaiah Hartenstein deal. Isaiah Hartenstein. I don't know why somebody got me thinking that's Steam, but I know it's Stein. Or even the Bruce Brown special that the Pacers did. Just overpay a free agent on a 1-year deal with a team option on the second. And that way they can keep the future flexibility but hit the salary cap floor or take on expiring contracts. Extension eligible players. I think one player you guys got to look. Jalen Smith. First year of the deal, he came in after really reviving his career, and he got picked up by the Bulls. The Bulls thought he was going to be an impactful guy. And in his first season, Billy Donovan just didn't play him. And this year, out of sheer need for bodies, they play Jalen Smith, and he becomes one of the most efficient bigs in the league. And that was after his stint in Indiana, where he revived his career in the second season at 25 years old. The former lottery pick. 21 starts, 12 points, 7 rebounds. He's entering the final year of his contract and is extension eligible July 8th. Even if he isn't long-term, what they think, he's going to be someone who will be trade valuable. Other extension eligible players through June 30th, all these guys. Anthony Simons can get a max 3 years, $104.6 million. Colin Sexton, 3 years, $71.7 million. Nick Richards, 3 years, $52.4 million. Leonard Miller, 3 years, $55.9 million after the team option is exercised. Zach Collins can get 4-year, $113.4 million. And Isaac Okoro can get 4-year, $92.8 million. Now, none of those guys are going to sign those contracts. Those are the max. But because of how 8% off their current average annual value. And then for the rookie extensions, it's I think 25%. This team needs shooting and front court depth. The Bulls finished 9th in 3-point shooting, but fell to 24th after the trade deadline. Since February 5th, they have allowed the second most second chance points and the 6th most points in the paint. Jalen Smith is more of an offensive guy. They just don't have rim protection besides Nick Richards. And with Jalen Smith, Buzelis, and Essengay all being more like fours, Smith's just being more of a energy scoring microwave big. They need a big interior presence. Adai Mara might be a good guy for them. Bring in Adai Mara or Morris Johnson or Patrick Dungba in this year's draft. The Bulls own their first round picks in each of the next 7 drafts. They can trade up to 4 of those picks. Chicago also holds a top 14 protected first rounder from Portland this season. If the Trailblazers advance out of the play-in, the pick conveys this year. The pick remains top 14 protected in 27-28 if Portland does not advance. Chicago also has 12 second rounders. So, as I've basically alluded to this video, if I'm Chicago, I'm kind of excited because you're like Play-Doh. It's going to be very moldable and, quite honestly, not too scary of a fix. I would be looking very forward to the future if I was the Chicago Bulls fan base. So I want to hear your guys' thoughts in the comment section. What do you guys expect and why? But yeah, that's it for me. Peace.